Okay, folks, we are back with day one, part two, all being well. Hopefully, folks are going to see this stream imminently and join in. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll need to open the YouTube chat so you can see what I see. Studio, youtube.com. Hope you've had lunch or dinner or whatever time zone you're on, some kind of break from your computer. I, in my 22 minutes, managed to inhale some food, so I'm feeling good. Let's have a look. Give me the comments, please. Just the comments. The chat area. Let's have a look. Come on. There we go. So, you pop out over here. Okay. Okay. Welcome back. This is day one, part two, the afternoon session / early evening session for me. We've got another 3 hours of code to get through, and we've still got some combine and core data to get through. So there's lots of stuff still to get through, but I still want to encourage you all to ask questions as we go. Hopefully, so far it's made sense. If it hasn't, by all means, I can repeat or rephrase or whatever works for you along the way. We had just built helper methods to make fetching URL data easier using URL session. And our job now is to go back to our code and integrate that into our project so we actually have real API data rather than the fixed stuff. Is there a reason we're not building out an image fetch get? You mean a function to get images? Is that what you mean, Alex? Before I answer your question, is that what you mean? Do you expect to get okay? You see anything? I mean, it should be okay. That might be a bandwidth issue, maybe, or a laptop catching fire issue. Oh, it's very, very hot, my laptop. Oh, ho, ho. Yeah, I need to get an M1 iMac Pro as fast as I can. So, Alex, why aren't we using an image? We could do. You could absolutely get binary data with this and then convert that into be a UI image, for example, if you wanted to. We're using SD web image here across the board, and with good reason. I mean, it's really, really nice because there's extra work. What format's it in? JPEG, PNG, GIF, I don't know, other formats, APNG, who knows what. There's that to worry about, what data we're handling here. We've got to worry about caching. Is the picture already downloaded? Should we download it again? Has it changed since last time? So there's a variety of things we've got to worry about beyond just purely the image, right? We've got to be careful about that kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm not particularly keen to try and re-implement SD web image ourselves. There's a lot to it. It's a very long-standing framework, very extensively used. So I would ideally use that. James asks, must they extend URL session? No. If you want to have a dedicated networking type to do this for you, brilliant. The reason we extend URL session is because you can make your own session configurations to do, for example, don't download when I'm not on Wi-Fi, and use that configuration. And then for fetch and get will attach to it directly. As opposed to, I mean, you could, if you wanted to, have, on session, URL session equals dot shared, right? So you could choose that as part of the method name if you wanted to, rather than having it on extension on session, have that in the method name directly, and have a networking.fetch or whatever you want to. That's fine. I wouldn't put it into the SwiftUI views. We want to use it in more than one place. So I want it somewhere else. And for me, this is a networking request using URL session. I want to have different configurations, so having it on URL session makes sense to me. But, it's your code. It's down to you. Fito asks, do we just use these name URLs to review these concepts later on? I don't know what you mean. I'm sorry. I might need some more coffee. I'm not sure what you mean there. Sorry. If you want to clarify, have another go at asking. Anyway, at this point, we've got all the code. Okay. At this point, we've got all the code required to fetch data nicely from the API. And so our job now becomes to go back to our code, and wherever we're using bundle.main.decode, bundle.main. So it's 4 places. The genre one is going to stay. Those aren't changing. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Fito. Yes, this URL will be on YouTube for a good few months. I'll remove it eventually and put them on Dropbox so you can download the videos yourself and have them offline. I might put them on Vimeo or something, maybe for long-term storage. I'm not sure. But they'll certainly be on, YouTube for the next month or so, that's for sure. Yes, we want to remove all the bundle.main decode calls except for genre. These ones aren't changing. These are hard-coded. They're going to stay in our JSON file. It's going nowhere. It's an app bundle. The genre list isn't changing. That's pointless. But the other ones, credits, details, and results, those need to come out and be replaced with live combined code to fetch our API, real in-flight requests, and respond to them. Now, in this case, in our content view, this results.json is an offline copy of some search results. That's what it's there to do. It's, you search for Batman, here's the Batman searches. Obviously, to make the app slightly more useful, we should allow them to search something other than Batman, unless you make the Batman app, maybe. You want to return other options here. And so what we're going to do is allow the user to search other kinds of things. And when they change their search text, call our get method. Get me this API with this search query, which can in turn call fetch. And so we're going to do that now, step by step in content view first. First things first, we're going to add an import for combine. That'll give us the any cancelable type. That thing stores our in-flight network request happening right now, fetching, decoding, who knows what. And we can at any point say cancel. Just bail out and forget about it. I give up, or they've changed their mind and search something else, or who knows what. But it's an any cancelable for us to modify and store as we need to. And now in here, our @state search results, we're not going to use bundle main decode anymore. Instead, we're going to make an empty search results object with no results. Nothing came back at this point. So the app starts clear. As a search, we'll replace that because it's @state, replace it with new search results every time. We also want to have another @state private var to store their search text string. We'll have a text field in our list. They can type things into it and see what it looks like. And then critically, we also have to have @state private var request an optional any cancelable. That is the in-flight network request or decode fetching their data. And what it means is whenever we want to do a new search, we'll cancel that, get a new one, and carry on again. So this thing is some kind of cancelable request from combine. Next, we want to put into our UI somewhere a search box. So they can search something other than Batman, right? And there is sadly no UI search bar equivalent yet in SwiftUI. I'm hoping in 4 weeks minus 2 days, we'll get one in SwiftUI 3, dub 21. Right now, we haven't got one. So we've got a sort of a hacky equivalent, sadly. In our section here, we're going to say that there is a header. And we'll put this directly into there. We'll say at a text field right in there saying, search for a movie. Bind that to be $search text. Now, because that's inside a section header, we will get uppercase text. We just will. It looks weird, so I would do text case .none to get default case. I'm also going to add text field style, rounded border text field style, so it stands out in the UI a bit more clearly. And let's fix the indenting. So now there'll be a search box attached to our section header. So it'll scroll around as we move around, which is quite nice. It's the closest we can get to a real UI search bar. They're much better in actual UI kit. They sort of live in the nav bar directly as opposed to in the list. But it's what it is, quite frankly, at this point. What we want to do now is, when the search text changes, we want to cancel any currently outstanding request. So perhaps it's decoding, or perhaps it's still fetching from the internet, who knows what. Cancel that and replace it with a call to our get method saying, get me the movie search API, passing in my criteria, my search text. If it fails, give me back an empty search results, so results empty array, and then a completion closure to run when the request is finished downloading and decoding. So we'll write a method down here. Func run search criteria a string. So again, the first thing you want to do is say, actually, if there's a request in flight right now, go ahead and cancel it. It's any cancelable. We don't care what the request actually is. We just care it can be cancelled. That's all any cancelable does, really. We'll then set request to be a new value, which will be URL session.shared.get. That's our helper method, right? And inside here, we can pass in the path to fetch, the part of the API we care about, what query items we want, what default value we want, plus a completion function to run when it's decoded the search results for us. Now, I've already gone ahead and done the work for you of reading through the API documentation, yada, yada, yada. I know exactly what to call here. We want to call search/movie. That's our path. And remember, that gets merged into api.moviedb.org/3/search/movie, right? It adds up into the full URL. Our query items is going to be a dictionary. And in this case, the items it expects to receive are one called query as the key, and the value is going to be the string you want to search for. In our case, that'll be criteria. Look for the criteria string. There's a default value. If things go wrong, if we're not online, if we've got back an invalid object, what do we expect? Well, then we'll get back a search results with empty results. So just clear the search. And the completion closure, this is going to hand us the items, the results. That will give us back a search result object, fully decoded, ready to go. What do you want to do with it? In our case, we're going to assign that straight to be search results, like that. So as you can see, results. As you can see, our get hasn't got to worry about all the nonsense for the API behind the scenes. So all this long part of the URL, forget about it. All the big API key, forget about it. We just care about this last little bit. Which bit do we care about? It's search/movie with the query, our search criteria. Go and fetch it. Go and retry. Go and decode it. Put default value if you can't get anything back. Then when you're finished, when you've done all that work on the main thread, assign that back to our search results. And now we want to call run search every time our search text changes. We get a real-time search as they type. So I'll say down here somewhere under our list navigation title, on change of the search text, perform run search, like that. So whenever search text changes, run it again, run it again, run it again, run it again, run it again. And that is all the code we need, all being well. I'll press Command R to build and run now. And hopefully, it should actually work. Let's find out. It's exciting. When it loads. When it loads. Goodness me. Okay, So we got a blank screen by default, which is good. I'm going to search for B. There we go. A T M A N. Brilliant. So all the work is being done by those helpers. This is why we made them. This is why looking to, oh, this is complicated. Why is it doing T decodable? Why is it doing da 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 da? Because it's doing nearly all the work for us. Our view does not have to care about where the API is from, or what the API key is, or how to handle URL query items, or URL escaping, or handling default values, or all that jazz. We just care about give me the results back, please. The thing I asked for, which will either be the correct search results from the API or our default value. It's an opaque, sealed box. I don't care what's happening inside there. That URL should give me some search results. Figure out how to make it happen. And I think it's great. I think it works really nicely. Francois asks if you want to unit test this. Tim, Xcode spits out gibberish all the time. Sorry, I can't fix that. That's just Xcode for you. As soon as one team fixes a noise, another team injects more noise. Francois, there are a few ways of mocking this. What we have here, of course, is a very large hidden dependency, on URL session shared. And really what you'd want to do is allow injection of that. So you might have something like, var URL session is a URL session equal to .shared by default, so that users can, test area, inject a custom URL session if you wanted to. So you could inject one that handles the task however you want to. Send back fixed data. That would work. That's one option. And then rather than having URL session shared down here, you'd have, my local URL session like that. So you do it. The other option that's probably better, even though it's a bit messy, is to make a custom URL protocol implementation. I've written about that somewhere. In Testing Swift, my book Testing Swift. Hey, you come to this workshop, you get a free book. Maybe you want Testing Swift. How to create a custom URL protocol type where you can inject your own handler, so all requests go via your mocking shim to return some fixed data. Because what you don't want to do is a real network request, right? You don't want to do an actual fetch the API ever. That's not a unit test. That's too slow and too flaky and just bad idea. So don't do that. So you can either inject your own version there and have your custom URL session mock, or replace a protocol with your own custom protocol. Both are in the book. Good book. Anyway, this is okay, right? This works. This is, we haven't had to change much in our UI to bring the whole thing to life. It's no longer the world's most boring Batman app, right? This is an improvement. But we can get further, and Jeremy's, exactly in the right direction. Debounce. Because the problem is that we have right now, as we're typing, every time you press a key, it hits the API. And so you can imagine very, very long movie names, will be terrifyingly hard on the old networking, right? You don't want to hit the API for every single key press unless it's that important. Like critically important, every key press, bang, API, fine. Most of the time you don't. Most of the time you want to wait for another key press. There isn't one, fine, trigger something. And how long you wait for is down to you, but some amount of time is a good idea to avoid whacking the API too much. And so what we want to do really is add what's called debouncing, which means just wait a little bit, like a half second or maybe even a full second to wait for another key press. And if one comes in, wait again. Another one comes in, wait again, until eventually nothing's happened for half a second or a full second, fine. Then do the full request. Now, debounce, Jeremy's asking, is that built into text field? No, it's not that I know of. I haven't seen it in text field. We can make one though. It's really easy to make, thanks to my second favorite use of Combine, debouncing stuff, because Combine, again, makes it really, really easy to debounce strings. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a reusable text debouncer that'll work perfectly here, but it's another nice piece of code you can steal and reuse in any kind of project you want to, where you want to debounce your work, so you're not always hitting the API again and again and again. And so I'll make a new Swift file here called, in my movies, thank you, called debounced text. Debounced text. So yes, Eric, you want to have import combined, otherwise you'll have that exact problem. Is there a key combo to get the closure at the end of a function call outside of the function's parens? I'm not sure what you mean, sorry. Anyway, make a new file called debounced text and then press create. And this thing, all it needs really is combine. I think includes foundation, should do. And then we'll say there's a class called debounced text, which conforms to the observable object protocol. It can be watched by Swift UI views or other publishing, reading types of view you have in your code. And this thing has two published properties. At published, var text is an empty string by default. And at published, var debounced text is an empty string by default. So this is the string that the user has typed. This is the string that's had that whole delay put into it. Wait half a second. Did anything change? No. Then set debounced text to be text. Otherwise, if they have typed again and again and again, wait until they've stopped typing or stopped inserting more text and then finally change stuff. Now internally, this has to have its own cancelable, its own thing to watch. And it's not exposed anywhere else. I'll make it private. I'll say private var text debounce is an any cancelable optional. So the text the user's typed is text. Debounced text is the text the user's typed after waiting a full half second, 1 second, whatever you want to make, in case there's more typing happening. In our initializer, all we're going to say is set our text debounce any cancelable, store the work we're doing, to be $text. That's the publisher for their text. It'll announce when things are changing. They've typed something again and again and again. So as they type, it'll update the text publisher again and again. But we want to debounce this work. Wait a small period of time. How much? You can do seconds or millis or whatever you want to. I'm going to say 0.5 seconds. That's a very fast debounce. You might go for 1 or even 1.2 or something like that. It's half a second, so it's, that kind of speed, right? That's quite fast typing, but, it's down to you. On a scheduler, and who was asked last time, how do I decide? I said I don't. I just basically pick what I feel like at the time. Let's do dispatch queue.main or on runloop.main. Debounce a half second. Of course, foundation's gone. Whoops. I took that out. I was wrong about import combined using it. There we go. So on the main queue here, half second. And when that debounce completes, when we're done, we're going to sync the value and do self.debounce text is the resulting text, $0. So it's not a lot of code, but that's all the code we need for debouncing. So as the user changes text, this will trigger. It will then wait half a second, see if text changes again. If it does, it'll wait another half second, and another half, until eventually they've stopped typing. Eventually text has stopped changing. At which point, it will sync, it will call this code here. It'll assign the new text to be debounced text. That's what it's doing. And that's a brilliantly reusable class. And now, back in our content view, we can use that. So we don't want to have this search text string anymore. We don't want that anymore. Yes, you could, Paul. Yeah. We don't want that anymore. Instead, we want to have an external object. We'll say at state private var search equals debounced text. Use the external class to handle stuff. Sorry, state object, sorry. It's a class. I'm being silly. Use the external class. Don't use a local search text value anymore, because now when we want to search for a movie, we'll do here $search.text. Use the text string on our remote object, not the local one, the remote thing now. And then down here we're doing on change. We don't do search text anymore. We want to change only when the debounced text changes. When that changes, call run search again. In theory, if I haven't made any comedy mistakes while I'm typing and talking, let's find out. I press Command R. This should wait for, I think, half a second I said. So it'll be a bit slower, a bit more network friendly, quite frankly. Let's find out. Come on, it's so slow to run. There we go. So now I'm going to try typing in here. If I'm lucky, there we go. B, pause. Come on, results. A, pause, results. T, pause, results. M, pause, results. A, pause, results. Batman's there now, isn't it, really? So there you go. So it's just pausing. It's not going to hit the network with every single thing immediately. And it means that if you're typing, like I was doing there, Batman, it waits till you finish typing before running the query. So it's a little bit nicer. Marcus asks, is it a return cycle? It probably is, yeah. It probably is. I'm not worried about it here because if it is, because it's supposed to be. I mean, it's not going to be removed ever in our program. So I wouldn't be terribly worried about it. If it is. I mean, what? I guess weak self in and then self dot. Yeah. But in our case, it's a bit like the early days of like DOS programs when you could kind of leak memory because when your program's killed, the memory goes away. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Leaks get destroyed. In this case, our search field is completely reusable, so there's no harm it, even if it was a retain cycle. But yeah, by all means, add a weak self in. And that's what it takes to get nicely debounced text. I'd probably experiment a little bit, like try other values rather than half a second. I think that's probably about right for typing it on your thumbs, but it's your program, folks. You dabble and see what you think. Anyway, the point is we now have very nice remote API searching with debouncing in our beautiful fetch/get helper code. It doesn't take much now to upgrade the rest of our program. So we've already done the search results. But like I said earlier, we also have to do credits and details. Genre's fixed. That's not going anywhere. That's this hard-coded stuff. It's fine. But those other two, they should go away. They need to serve live data from TMDB. Now for this one, this is going to be inside. Where is it? All the way down here for some reason. Let's just reorganize my code real fast because I don't like it being quite so messy. There we go. In here, like this, you need to go ahead and replace movies, movie detail view.swift, details and credits with remote answers from the same thing. Is there a quick way to debug if no results are returned? I mean, default value maybe? I guess no results. I don't know. I'm not sure is the answer, sorry. I want you to have a go at doing this yourself, right? Details and credits, how to hit those two yourself using TMDB. Now, the API endpoints you're going to want to hit are movie slash, no slash at the beginning, sorry. Movie slash string interpolation movie.id. That's one API endpoint. That's the one to get movie details. And the other one you're going to want is movie/movie ID/credits. So this gives you movie details. This gives you movie credits. So no results, no results, no results. I wonder if I've made a mistake in my code somehow. And I know it seems to work for me, but can you check it is search/movie as your path? Like that. So, I mean, what you could do, and if you wanted to go into your code to see what's going on. Okay, Tim gets results. I'm not losing the plot completely. What you could do here in your fetch call, you could just map this here and, hello. So map here expects to be given the data and response, right? And really that's what we're doing right now. We're saying got data, got response, give back data. That's what we expect to happen there. And that's what \.data really means, right? If you wanted to, you could do let str equals string decoding that data as utf8.self and then print got str, for example. That would intercept the data that got back and say what I actually got back is this, and then anyway send it back to decode and replace and receive and sync, right? So we're just injecting a little monitoring hole in there, just in case there's a slight error in some part of your code. So you might want to do that, if that helps. Tim's and Drew. But it works the other one, so I'm not losing the plot. It's not just me. That's good. Anyway, while you are debugging that one, I'm going to hit undo a few times. Undo. Oh, so it's debounce that's causing it. That's interesting. Did you use state object when making your debouncer? This one here. I wonder. Let me press Command R. Make sure mine definitely still works. Yeah, so I typed at state by accident at first because it was at state previously, and I created the state object. So that makes sense. That explains why it would fail. When using at state, Swift UI will only refresh the UI when the entire value type object changes. That's a new string, a new array, whatever it is, right? It'll then refresh the whole type. When you have state object, it's for reference types like classes, where individual properties inside the class instance are going to change. And as a result, it looks for published values. Yes, watch for this changing. Yes, watch for this changing, and similar. And so for the class, you've got to use state object rather than state. Otherwise, it won't work quite so well. Well, not work at all, in fact. There are some times where actually you use at state with reference types because they don't support observable object usually, but they've got to stay alive anyway. Anyway, hopefully, good. State object. So that's mostly my mistake. I typed state by accident at first because I did use a state originally, but it should be state object. Okay, where we were was you doing the work. The best part of the day. I love these parts of the day. In movie detail view, I want you to fetch these two endpoints. So for the details here, you want to fetch movie/movie ID. And then for the credits, it's movie/movie ID/credits. Fetch those two. Make sure you import combine and you store your requests in an any cancelable set. or something like that. Stash them away somewhere. Otherwise, it isn't going to work. In our content view, we stashed away our request here. You've got 2 requests in flight now, one for the credits, one for the details. Put them away somewhere, otherwise they get destroyed straight away and never return. So make sure you save your things away somewhere. So your job now is to upgrade movie detail view to get the actual credits and the actual movie details, whatever they selected. Go for it. I'm going to have a drink of water. I'll just check when our break actually is. I think it's like 7:30 maybe. I mean, whatever it is that in US time. What did I write down? Nothing. Cool. Good work, Hudson. I'm going to say 7:30 p.m. and pretend that was a plan all along. So James had state object and it's still not working. Let's just compare your... so there's a few components here. Can you make sure this run search method is being run, James? Folks, if you're listening in and you're working on movie detail view, crack on. If your code works, you carry on. Ignore me talking away to James. You go and do your thing. I'm going to try and debug the problem here with James temporarily. If you place a breakpoint on run search, or just click on line 35 like I've done here, that should be triggered regularly. Whenever you type, it should be triggered again and again and again. So I'll press Command R to build and run my code now. And I should see run search is called a lot. So it's thinking. Come on. It's super slow. Come on. Okay. So I'll go in here. I'll type, which is so slow, B for Batman. And bang, breakpoints hit. So it means run search is being called. That's good. If your breakpoint's not being called, it means the run search isn't being called when the debounce text is being changed. So perhaps, right, no breakpoint, okay. So that means it's not being called, which suggests that maybe you're missing the onChange search debounce text perform run search modifier. That means whenever debounce text is changed, run search will be called again and again and again. It might be that. If that modifier is there, then isn't that? It means I would then check at state object is debounce text. That's there correctly. And we are modifying search.text as opposed to the old search text local at state private var. We want to modify our observable objects text string. So if state object is there and we're modifying search.text inside our text field, then I would suggest the last place it's going to be inside the debounced text class. Is that working correctly? So far it's looking all good apparently. It's all correct by the looks of it. So let's go and dig around inside debounced text. Oh wait, search text missing. Aha. So you might have had the old code which was search text. That's the local at state private var string we had going on. I've removed that. We don't want it on local string anymore. We want to use our debounce text handler instead as a better way of doing that. So hopefully that's a problem. Give that a try, see how you get on. In the meantime, I'm going to admire my massive out of control inbox. Working brilliantly. That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear it. Yesterday, we, by which I mean the Diversity in Swift group, we announced the mentoring program. What day before yesterday? I lost track already. The mentoring program. If you want to get into the Swift community more, if you want to learn how to contribute to real open source projects, we want to help you. And I've had a lot of people get in touch as mentors who want to help people and mentees who want to be helped. And it's amazing. We've got some really, really amazing mentors. Like so many folks from Apple have signed up as mentors. So you want to have folks who work on the Swift compiler teach you how to fix or implement Swift compiler features. Bang, they're going to help you. It's amazing. It's like a 12-week program where, you know, a subject matter expert on the Swift compiler will help you make your first Swift compiler changes. And, we're going to feature folks at the end in the Swift.org blog. It's going to be amazing. So I've had a massive wall of emails about folks applying to the program, which is brilliant. And apply. Seriously, check it out. Check it out. I recommend folks apply. There's no requirements. You could be an almost beginner in Swift, and obviously not a complete beginner. 3-6 months, even perhaps 9 months of Swift, more than enough to get in there and make a change. And they'll help you make a change. So recommended. If you go to swift.org and then go to the blog, boom, check this out. Love it. How to apply right here. That's it. It's not students. You haven't got to be from a diverse group. Anyone can apply. And we encourage folks to get involved as a mentor or a mentee. We've got folks from a variety of open source projects like Vapor, like MongoDB. In fact, I can't even say, but there's a huge range of folks who are applying as mentors. So, I recommend you get in touch. It's really, really nice. You've got until May 24th. Oh, so it's 2 days ago. I'm losing track of time. May 24th to get going. And then it starts mysteriously just after WWDC, when things have calmed down for our poor Apple mentors, in theory. So go and check it out. There's a mini sales pitch for you. Anyway, hopefully you're having a go at implementing those API calls. It's very, very similar to what we have already. The credits path, good question. So it'll be in movie details view. So movie/movie ID, so a movie like 268, for example, will get you the Batman details, and movie/268/credits will get you the Batman credits. These are the paths right here, Santiago. Obviously, you want to use, your movie as opposed to always Batman. It's like Rick rolling, just Batman rolling. All being well, the resulting data should be the same as what we have right now. Obviously, if you choose Batman, that is, the cast list, whatever layout you chose, should be identical. Obviously, there's a big change here, which is that we won't have movie details or credits by default. So you could put in default values of, no revenue, no runtime, or optionals, and use if let unwrap inside the body. I don't really mind what approach you choose. It's down to you. I wonder if over here, while you are busy thinking, I can go futzing. I'll give you about another 5 minutes or so. Does that seem fair, folks? I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to rush you too much. I want you to have a good go. Years ago, I went to a really great privilege. I went to the Swift Alps conference, which is a Swift conference in the Alps, and the clue's in the name, really. And it was invented by the Swift MobiDev group. As a way of building a workshop-based conference. And it's really unique and really special. It's been copied by Swift Island and Swift Avero and similar. It's a really lovely event. And everything's workshop-based. and it's pair programming in person. Obviously, it doesn't work so well right now, but you're next to someone the entire time, and your goal is to implement a feature. That's it. It's all you. Go and do the feature. And what you find again and again and again is if you are the not the driver in a pair, you're someone else doing typing, you're watching or helping, whatever. It's so much easier. Like there's less pressure when you're sort of watching someone else type and work and giving feedback and so forth. When you're actually the one doing the coding, actually the one, the pilot, the driver, whatever you'll call it, it's so much harder because you make mistakes all over the place, but you learn way better. You learn so much better, and so I'm really hopeful here. You're not just waiting for me to do the code for you. You're actually having a go, because when you get it wrong, you're going to learn or understand what's going wrong, and more. So I encourage you, have a go. Don't worry about screwing it up. It's only a workshop. There's no judging here. Give it a try. I'd rather you had a go and failed than just sort of wait and get nowhere. Star Wars number 11. Oh, Jeremy, I am now curious. Which movie did number 1? I guess you'd have a quick look, couldn't you? API/movie/1. What would be number 1? Oh, Gone with the Wind, something like that. Or Casablanca. I don't know. I can see that being... Oh, no, Citizen Kane. That's always a popular film, isn't it? I hope it isn't some random film like Fast and the Furious 5 or something. Too Fast, 9 Furious or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, TLDR, have a go. You have nothing to lose. Noodling around is fine. Making mistakes is fine. That's how we learn. You will learn much better if you make some mistakes and you feel a bit brave along the way. About another 3 minutes, folks. Is that okay? If you want to have more time, you're welcome to say so in the chat. Or if you finished already, of course, even better. Well, not a race, but let me know. Or I can just carry on talking to myself. That also works. Tim, that's okay. That's okay. That is honestly 3/4 of programming, quite frankly. There's quite a few steps required to get this one exactly to be right. Uh-oh. Pressure from Kyla. A correct solution. Before workshops in person, I show a few slides of my workshop rules, and I end them with this picture of Captain Kirk, from the original Star Trek, looking kind of suave, Shatner style, and there's a quote put next to it, which is, "I'm sorry I can't hear you over the sound of how awesome I am." And I say that because folks sometimes come to workshops thinking, "Oh, here's Paul Hudson. He knows everything about Swift. It's going to be amazing." And I say, no. I intend to learn stuff today too. I want to learn stuff. You can teach me a bunch of stuff. I know a third or so of UI kit. There's a whole swathe of things I don't know, and I want to get that out front, because when you do that, you're setting the tone. It's okay to ask questions. What does that do? What does that do? What does that do? Because there are stacks of things I don't know. And if I come in saying, oh man, this is the right way to do it, this is the correct solution, then it kind of shuts down discussion, shuts down alternatives or tangents or exploring together. So what I'll show you is a solution, not by any means a correct solution. Movie number 2 is a movie called Crime. Respect. Respect. I mean, that it says right there what the film's about. What's in it? Crime. Lots of just crime. Sequel's called Crime 2, even more crime. It's right to the point. Arch Image asked, what am I hoping for from WWDC? I know a whole bunch of folks have high hopes on SwiftUI being open sourced or who knows what. I just want a whole bunch of very boring, very small SwiftUI tweaks. Starring other mugger, yes, love it. A whole bunch of small SwiftUI tweaks, I want to have pull to refresh. I want to have control over my list separators. I want to have text fields in alerts. I want to have all this kind of thing, just little tweaks here and there to make SwiftUI a little bit nicer in places where it's currently not possible to use it. Like search bars, like here. That frustrates me. And so I'd love to have big stuff, but honestly, just fix the annoyances. Like, how do you resign the keyboard? That shouldn't be hideous hack, should it? That should be straightforward to do. And it's hideous hack as it is. So, yeah. My wish list is real small for SwiftUI. Lots of small things add up to a bunch of big things. Like real quality of life changes, I'm kind of hoping, so you remember like May, April, March 2019, there was property wrappers coming through. There were subscript keys. There were other things like, what's going on here? This is all going somewhere. And I actually asked someone on the Swift team on Saturday before WWDC, what's going on? This is all pointing towards something, I just don't know what. And they went, no idea. No idea what you're talking about. No idea. Nothing here. And of course it was SwiftUI. And it was all being developed in the open. You could see it. You could see it. And you could even see their wrong turns. That's the best bit. If you look carefully, if you know what you're looking for, in retrospect, sorry, tangent coming up here, folks. But in retrospect, you can even see their wrong turns. I love it because you can sort of see things they tried that did not pan out. Because, you got to think about it. SwiftUI had been in progress since Swift 1, right? They'd seen it work and work and work and work. And had to change with Swift 2, Swift 3, Swift 4, Swift 5, and imagine all the work that was. But they had to figure out the nice way of writing Swift code, SwiftUI code, and it was hard. And they worked on so many different approaches to make that better. What could be the right way of writing SwiftUI code, until eventually they settled on property wrappers and function builders, result builders now. And for example, as an example of this, if I pull out this here, this is SE0257, put forward by Nate and Matthew to remove trailing commas in multi-line expression list to make visual clutter go away. So you could say thing, no comma, thing, no comma, thing, no comma, thing, no comma, thing, no comma. And this almost certainly was proto SwiftUI. Some view, no comma, some view, no comma, some view, no comma, and the best bit, I love this so much. I love it. It's brilliant. This proposal was turned down because of Klattner. So Chris Lattner said, look, I know it's SwiftUI. Didn't say it public because he'd been on SwiftUI because he was at Apple at the time. He knew it's SwiftUI. I know that's why you want it, but I think this change is not good for the language generally outside SwiftUI. And so he turned it down. Said, no, I'm not having this on our language. And so they had to go back and then invent result builders, basically, to find another way of doing this without having to have the comma eliding. But it's brilliant because you literally see it coming together. You can see their plans building up towards SwiftUI. Omitting return, for example. You don't have return stuff. It's just inferred automatically. So there's so many ways they had this thing moving closer and closer and closer towards where they wanted it to be. All public, all there, obviously the case, but you couldn't tell until you looked after the fact. Sorry, massive rant. Oh, hey dogs, you still hungry? Well, they haven't finished just yet, so you get one thing. You're a good dog. Yes, you are a good dog. Oh, don't drool on me. Ah, you bad dog. Not a good dog. You can't take your drool somewhere else. You dogs. This is what I get. Never work with kids and animals, eh? Okay. Yes, we were doing URL fetching. Take your drool somewhere else. Clear off. Right. Have you all finished, or had a go at least? And I can show you a walk through an example solution. And then if you want to, you can borrow bits of mine, borrow bits of yours. I don't really mind. Let's walk through what this might look like as an example. And if you have your own version, that's fine. Don't assume mine's like the correct version. Mine's a version. No, come on, you've had a treat. Come on, clear off. Get your schnoz out of here. Go on. Okay, first things first. We're in movie detail view. We want to have an import for combine, so we can have any cancellables. Now, if you wanted to, you could take the same approach in content view and have a cancelable for each request. So details request, credits request, and more. That's fine. I don't mind, it's your choice. When working with more than one, I prefer not to do that. I prefer to have them all in one place. So what we're going to do is we're going to say our details here is no longer bundled main decode yada yada yada. It's no. Out. Go on. No barking. Out. That's a loud one. This thing is an optional movie details. And this thing is an optional credits. But we're going to load these things using any cancellables and store them all in one place. So I'll say at state private var requests. So all our requests is a set of any cancelable. So store lots of requests in one object. It's not an array. It doesn't have to be an array because we don't want duplicates. It's all our any cancellables in one place. That's set. Now we're getting complaints here because credits is now optional. And here again, it's optional, because we haven't got any values back when our screen first launches. And so we're going to add to this thing a little unwrap. Guard let credits equals credits, else return empty array. So both of those properties. So attempt to get the credits. If we can't, get back an optional empty array. That gets us partway through. But we're still working with optional details now. And so further down here, we have our revenue and our runtime on the details. But we might not have details loaded yet. The request could still be in flight. They could be, in the middle of the countryside on 3G or, heaven forbid, Edge. We want to make sure we only load that when we have actual details to show. So again, little optional unwrap. We'll say if let details equals details, then hstack, like that. So only show it when we're ready to show it. And now we're going to add a method to fetch all our movie details, credits, and later on more information. So way, huge view. I don't like huge views, but it is what it is. We're going to make a new method here, func fetch movie details. And this thing is going to handle both of our requests, fetch details and also fetch credits. Add them both to the set if they both worked, and then hopefully update the UI. That's the plan. So we'll say our movie request equals URL session dot shared dot get, and we're going to use path default value completion, like that. There's no query string here, just basically movie/movie ID. So our path is going to be movie/string interpolation movie.id. Default value nil. I got nothing back. Don't worry about it. We couldn't find details, just carry on. Completion though, this is going to be our trailing closure. We got our downloaded object in, assign that to details. Like that. So just copy across whatever we downloaded into details. And this I think is brilliant. There are lots of things I love about Swift, but the level of type inference that happens is just chef's kiss magic. I love it. Remember, this get method, this is generic over some kind of decodable. We don't know what. As any canceller comes back, it wants a function that takes a t. What is t? We haven't even said what t is. Default value is nil. Could be anything at all. It's an optional nil. Could be optional basically anything in default value. And Swift figures it out from that, from it being assigned to details. It can see, well, you're putting it into a detail string, ask me what it is. When I take it out, you can see it's complaining. I don't know what downloaded is. But it's able to figure it out from the body of the method. It's absolutely beautiful. Anyway, that is our first method done. Our second request, copy and paste. This one is going to be the cast request. No, not cast, crew request. Sorry, crew request. We're going to get movie/movie ID /credits. It's not crew, it's not cast or crew, it's credits, darn it. /credits. Again, default value nil, download it in, assign the results to credits. And again, the type inference goes in and figures out what it is based on the way it's being used inside the function. It's just, I love it. So at this point, we now have a movie request and we have a credits request here. And you can see this thing is an optional any cancelable. It might have worked, might have failed. So we'll say if it worked, insert that into our request set so it stays alive the entire time. So it'll carry on, complete, and decode and push back to the main thread and so forth. So we'll say if let movie request equals movie request requests.insert movie request. And then same thing for credits request. Credits request is credits request. And insert credits request. Keep track of these things. Keep them while they're going, otherwise it will be destroyed. You don't want that here happening at all. And that is almost all the work. So our UI now understands how to create the layout. Here's my requests area. Here's my optional data to store in credits and details and so forth. Here is my method to trigger the request happening. Stash it away in our active requests, any cancelable set. The last thing to do is tell the system when this view is shown on the screen, kickstart these requests. Don't do them proactively for every possible thing on the screen. That'd be very, very slow. Instead, do it on appear. So we'll say .onAppear perform fetch movie details. So run that immediately. Go ahead and fetch all the details there. And hopefully, if I haven't screwed up too much with my dog slobber on me, dogs are great. Command R, let's find out if it's going to work or not. It's exciting. So in theory now, any kind of movie I select will show its correct answer for those movies. Let's find out. So I'm going to search for our old pal. Come on. Batman. And then let's do Batman. I don't know Batman films very well. Let's do the Batman Begins. That's a new one, isn't it? There we go. Cast Christian Bale. There you go. Michael Caine, Liam Neeson, Katie Holmes, Gary Oldman, and Hans Zimmer now, rather than Danny Elfman. It was in the original Batman. Well, not original, you know what I mean. And hopefully, so that made a fair amount of money. That made less than the first Batman film. Wow. But it was longer. Okay, so it's expensive. So now we're fetching live API data across the board. They're significantly better. Aha! Yes, Juan, the on appear is the important part here, otherwise it's not going to work too well. I mean, you could do it in the initializer, but that's a bad idea because that'll be called very quickly for all the views because SwiftUI is not lazy at all. You know, when you got a navigation link, it'll just create a destination straight away. So I would recommend you do it on Appear just to make absolutely sure. You know, NJ Ram, I'm afraid I never actually use a live preview. I just don't use it. I haven't got the patience for maybe working, maybe not working. I use the preview for does it look about right? But even then, I don't really trust it. I want to see it on the actual simulator, or ideally, an actual device. Just to be really, really sure it works. I wouldn't do it from there. Yeah, so Mark, again, I wouldn't necessarily call it from init because of the way Swift works. I mean, Swift's not lazy. I mean, we could probably find out, in fact. So a little noodle around, see how lazy it is or is not. If we make initializer init print creating for movie.title. So we're just saying when I make this view, oh, rat bags. Okay, movie, self.movie equals movie. So we're just mimicking the synthesize and initializer that Swift gave us anyway. And let's see what it thinks of that. So, come on, you can load. James, if there's a particular bit you miss, I can walk over it again in slightly slower. It's fine. The requests are declared up here. They're made as a set any cancelable. So we'll store them in there. All our requests in one place. We can make as many requests as we want. And then we create the actual requests, the cancelable requests, inside this fetch movie details thing. Anyway, so here, our search for, when it loads, come on, hello, Batman. See that? So it just made all these views, like made our movie detail views across the board. And so if you wanted to do networking work in the initializer, you're going to do networking for all these things the user isn't even going near. SwiftUI is really, really not lazy the way it creates stuff. So just be careful. Be careful. Initializer should be really light, if possible. Francois, so they're called in parallel. They'll both run. One will return, it'll pop in the screen. Other returns, that'll pop in the screen too. So they're not chained, they're not synchronized. They are independent, and they'll both finish whenever they want to finish, more or less. One might fail, one might succeed. I mean, it's networking, it's hard to predict. So James, this is the function or the method, sorry, where all the real work takes place. We call our get helper twice with two different API endpoints, one for movie ID and one for the credits. Just like passing nil to default value, did you make sure your properties, Eric, are both optional? So up here, it should be optional movie details and optional credits. You don't want to try and pass in a default value there because there might be no details or no credits. Yeah, so Juan, there's never going to be any prior requests. On appear is going to trigger exactly once when the view's created and shown. So in theory, it's not going to appear multiple times. It should just be called exactly once and put both of those into the request set. So they are optional, but it's still not happy with nil for default value. That's interesting. It wants a value in there. That'd be difficult to provide a default value for. You haven't got any details to work with. I guess you could do a movie details. You could invent one if you wanted to with no details and no revenue and stuff, but I wouldn't. I would screw up the if-lets. Can I see movies where search results is mentioned? I'm not sure what that means. Movies, you mean content view? Or I'm not sure what you meant. Sorry, Mad Brad. I would never have thought of that arch image. That's an interesting one. You mean movie.swift? Here? This one? Is search results in here? Don't know. Oh, this one. Oh, that. That thing you mean. Maybe. Bit of guesswork here. So, hopefully, most of you have compiling working code. Yeah, a couple of folks might not. If you have not got working code, please say so now in the comments so we can get it fixed and move on. Otherwise, you're going to fall a bit far behind. If you want to do good back to the old code, use the hard-coded stuff while you resolve it later on afterwards, it's down to you. Can I see the bottom movie detail view? Of course you can, Eric. Of course you can. So this one here, you mean? That lot, hopefully. There's our on appear call. There's the big method doing most of the work. So James, where's your error currently? Because I wasn't quite sure. You just lost overview of the solution. I'm not sure that might be. Just above. Of course you can. There we go. Right, call revenue and runtime. Revenue, runtime, revenue, runtime. Up here? Oh, the if let. You don't need displayed cast, James. That's optional. I put that in so I could have a show more button, so it wasn't always showing the entire cast and the entire crew because it gets really big. If you want to show them all, that's fine. It's your application. You haven't got to use that wrapper at all. It's fine. So we are hopefully about to leave Combine behind and go on to the third big hitter of our workshop, which is core data. Once we get everyone's code in a good place. So at this point, I think Eric's now working. Yeah, James, if you could just say what's not working. Like, is there an error message perhaps? Or it compiles cleanly and just doesn't actually function correctly? It's difficult to debug not working. So is there an error in the Swift compiler in Xcode, or is it no errors? It runs just fine and nothing happens. If you clarify it, perhaps we might be able to. Indra has posted a version in Slack, even better. Value of optional movie details. Okay. On which line, James? Is it? Do you know? Because must be right. Aha. Okay. So that could mean. In that case, it could mean that down here we have revenue and runtime. You want to make sure you wrap that in a if let details equals details, because by default we haven't got any details. We only fire off the network request to fetch it and decode it when the view's shown on the screen in that on appear call. And so we want to make sure that whole H stack for revenue and minutes and so forth, runtime, is inside that if let details equals details block, just to make sure it's definitely there by the time it gets shown on the screen. So yes, core data next, which is of course one of the quirks at this point of Apple's development. Now, SwiftUI, I think, has shown everyone what a brave new world can look like, and core data now feels uncomfortable. Let's put it that way. Optionality everywhere. UI for creating it rather than code. It's not pleasant. classes absolutely everywhere. Magic galore. You know, it was interesting talking to Chris Latner on Swiftly Speaking, because I sort of passed him the joke that no one understands Swift's initializer rules for classes because it's complicated, you know, convenience required, yada, yada, yada. And he said really clearly, we added those things specifically because of core data, because it had to work in a very particular magical way. You know, at NS managed is just what's going on. So core data bypasses so much of the way Swift safety works, and we pay the price for it in complexity, sadly. I would love to see that go away. I'd love to see, you know, data UI or something like that. Swift data. It'd be lovely. All code-based. In fact, if you ever use Vapor, Vapor gets it exactly right. Vapor's fluent API for creating databases is just beautiful. Mad Brad, in vContent view for each. You mean you want to see the code? This one? Presumably. Are we all set to continue, folks? I don't want to leave people behind, but equally we've got a lot to get through still. Are there any obvious compile errors we can fix now, or fix in the Slack or something? Your for each isn't working. That's interesting. That hasn't changed for a little while. You mean it's not compiling, I'm guessing, Mad Brad? Make sure your at state is this type here. Search results, empty array by default. And then search results, dot results. Well, listen, Brad, in about 10 minutes, we've got a brief convenience break. Perhaps we could look at your code then. Would that be okay? I mean, we haven't got a lot of time at the 5-minute break, but it's enough for that. But perhaps you can diagnose it. And in fact, why don't you mail it over to me? Just zip up your whole project folder. Zip it up. Zip up the whole thing. Directory, project, Xcode project, everything. And just mail it to me. And I can look at it. If you just email paul@hackingwithswift.com, I'll see it and extract it and debug it here if you like. So Eric's suggesting that maybe it's a different part of the code entirely. That wouldn't surprise me. Again, SwiftUI's errors are unhelpful sometimes. Are we okay to move on, folks? And we can perhaps circle back to Brad's particular compile problem during the break. Yes, I'm hoping. Brad? I'm gonna assume silence is yes, because we've got so much to get through still. It's a busy, busy agenda, and I did promise there'd be a core data involved somewhere, so that's now. Okay, good. Thanks, Kyler. At this point, we've got stacked SwiftUI, we've got stacked to combine. It's now time for the third major part of this project, which is core data. And what I want to do is, when we're browsing for a movie, we can say, this one, favorite this one, like this one, and it'll keep it for available offline usage. So I'm going to search for it again and again and again. The information you care about, that movie, just grab it and save it locally. Could I briefly refer to best practice for displaying lots of image data in a SwiftUI scroll view / list? That'd be great. I can try. There's no magic, other than lazy VStack. There's no magic there whatsoever. SwiftUI is not going to help you at all to manage your memory. If you have very large images, they're going to max out your RAM very, very quickly and be but slow. SwiftUI is not helpful in that respect. If you want to have complex images where you're loading and unloading based on scroll position, you've got to use UIKit. That's the best practice. Use UIKit. Anyway, Third major part of this project, we want to make core data work. So you can download the movies you care about and just store, the overview and the whatever, right? So I want you to press Command N to make a new file. And this time, search in the filter box for data model. Here it is. Then press Next. And name it whatever you want to. I tend to call mine main because I am not exciting with names. So my main model, and press Create. And we're going to add an entity, a class to store movies, the offline data. And this is only the basic stuff, like the title, overview, release date, vote average, all that kind of jazz, right? We had already in our movie struct. But we cannot call this movie, okay? Movie is our simple little Swift struct. It's decodable, identifiable, over there, exists here. This is a saved movie. This is core data's version of movies. Don't confuse the two, because core data is, again, not very pleasant in Swift. It's not exactly a great Swifty citizen, quite frankly. It loves making things optional. Every string you add will be optional. It's really painful to work with, and so don't pollute your code with that. Keep the core data code carefully hived off, safe somewhere else. Don't put it elsewhere in your project. So we're going to add a new entity in here. I'm going to call this thing a saved movie. Movie, even. Brad, if you could email me your entire project directory, including the Xcode proj, the whole thing, whatever your desktop, wherever it is, and mail it across to me, and I'll have a look at it on my machine here during the break. And that way I can fix it real quick, rather than trying to debug via chat, which is slow and problematic. James, no, you can't. You can't make them not optional, because core data's idea of optional is not the Swift's definition of optional, right? It means when you say, well, I'll show you now actually. Let's add some attributes first, okay? So I'm something to work with. Attributes here, I'm going to say all the same ones we had from our movie struct. The same stuff. ID. There's going to be an int 32. You've got to use an exact size because, of course, core data could be an iCloud across 64-bit and 32-bit devices. You can't say int anymore. Exact size of int you want. So an ID. We want a title. We want an overview. We want a release date. We want a vote average. What else do we want? Sorry, I've forgotten what you are. Poster path, backdrop path, genres. Okay. We want a poster path. We want a backdrop path. And we're going to add genres, not genre IDs, because, I'll explain now, most of these are strings. So, backdrop path, you're a string. Overview, you're a string. Poster path, you're a string. Release date, you're a string. Title, you're a string. For average, you're a double. Genres, this is going to be a set of integers. And core data does not do that. It just does not do that. You've got to encode that into a data blob, binary information, and then stuff it into binary data. It is not nice to work with complex types in core data. And so the easiest thing to do is to say, actually, this is going to be a string. And we'll take our set of 14, 18, 28 and make it into a string with commas. 14, 18, 28. Simplest thing to do. We know it's always going to be a comma separated list of integers. Otherwise, it's just a wall of pain. Now, as James was saying, core data allows us to say genres here is optional or not optional. But this doesn't do anything, realistically. It leaves it as a Swift optional behind the scenes. It's still an optional string. All it means is, by the time you call save, by the time you want to save your changes, it's got to have a value or not. So if it's not optional, you must have provided the genres string. If it is optional, you don't have to. But it can still be an optional string in the meantime from Swift's perspective. It's deeply upsetting. It's bad. If you wanted to, please don't do this. If you wanted to, you could select your entity type and change CodeGen to something here, and then generate NS managed object subclasses in here. And then you'll see optional string, optional string, optional string all the way down, no matter what that checkbox is, optional strings. And then literally remove the optionality by hand. Don't do that. You're going to cause a wall of pain for yourself with what's called faulting in core data. It's going to fetch more data than it needs constantly. It's not how it's designed to work. It's designed for optionals. Leave it alone. Let it do its work behind the scenes. Anyway, so this is why I want to see it replaced. Maybe this year. If not this year, definitely next year. Crikey, I hope so. Anyway, that's our model. It's not complex, right? Load of strings, a single int 32, a double, but that only in complex one is that bit to map between a set of integers and our string type. Now, it is 1928. Before we go on to the next step, I think I'll have a little break now. Again, 5 minutes, pop to the bathroom. Brad, if you could, just zip up your whole project directory, all the code, the project, everything, and mail it to Paul at hackingwithswift.com, or put it in the Slack if you want to. I don't really mind how you do it. I'll have a look. I'll have a look and see if I can debug it in the break. Anyway, it's 9:29. I'll see you back here at 1934, so 5-6 minutes time from now for the final stage of our core data adventure. And hopefully, so we can get Brad's code working too. Nothing's arrived yet. James, why do we need it? Well, firstly, because I promised it'd be in the workshop. And I always am a man of my promises. But second, to store data, to store their save favorites. Now, for small projects like this one, honestly, core data is overkill. And actually, for some larger projects, overkill too. We could serialize the whole thing to Codable, for example. You'd lose filtering, you'd lose sorting, yada, yada, yada. You'd lose a lot of things, but it'd be much simpler in terms of the functionality, that's for sure. The nice thing about core data here is, yes, if you wanted to add sorting and filtering, you can do it. It's more powerful. But also it gives me a chance to show you how we can marry up core data, Swift UI, and a really good struct-based model data all at the same time, because it's easy to get wrong. Let's see if I can find Brad's code. Yeah, got a message called Brad's code. I like it. That's my kind of catchy title right there. Let's look at the code so we can fix this real fast. And then I'll stretch my legs and then even perhaps go to the bathroom. All right, download. And then open up. And then open up. Open up, please. It's thinking. What are you doing? Come on. What are you playing at? Open up Brad's code. My movies. Brad's code. There we go. Trust and open. I trust you, Brad. You're safe. Probably. We're back in 4 minutes. Oh, we're reorganizing. Look at this. Oh, very nice. I wouldn't do it that way, but I like it. Build. Let's see what's wrong with it. Checking out. Oh, come on. Package loading in progress. Blah, 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 blah. Come on. Hurry up. Build. Build him up, build face. Come on. Oh, for a faster Mac. Bang. Okay. Oh, missing a brace, apparently. That is definitely going to kill it. That's going to make it very unhappy. Where are we missing a brace? Further up somewhere. There's problems. There's quite a few problems here, isn't there? Let's just temporarily rip out a bit of this code, see what's going on. Let's take out that in case it's in there somewhere. Is that better? Still missing a brace somewhere in your thing. So there's a for each starting, navigation view ending, body ending. That's a method, that is. Yeah, there's a few little problems all sort of combining here. Get results in that thing, end that, end that. That's one better. Cannot assign value of any. Oh, what's this? Results. Oh, you've got a fault value of search results. Okay. Fine. And then. Oh yeah, that shouldn't be that. That should be a default search results. Search results. Results is an empty array like that. It's still angry, but getting there slowly. So you had empty array here of nothing, which isn't really a good idea. You've got to say what it is, and by default, it's a search results. So it can read this bit correctly, otherwise it wouldn't know what to do. More detail is unavailable here because of internal protection. Eh? Really? Okay, let's put the section. Let's put the section back while I'm thinking about it. It was like here or so. Oh, I lost it. Whoops, rats. Let me just put it back again real fast. There we go. So this should have been this little section here. Boom. Let's put it back in again. And then it should be here. Boom. About that, more or less. Okay. Where are we now? Where are we now? Right, so why is that the case? That should have been never the case, surely. How is movie detail private? Let's have a look. Views, movie detail view. Struct. Nope, seems fine to me. Not private at all. Interesting. Okay. Might be a false positive. Let's just have a look. We dig it out and say destination is, let's do color.red. Are you any happier? It still doesn't like it. How is that private? Movie example. That's all fine. Far body, at state, let movie. Nothing about that's private. Wait a minute. Requests. Where's requests come from? Where's requests? Requests. Aha! Bang! That's the problem there. So you've said there's going to be a set of any cancellables here. Oh, sorry. Nigel's seen it already. Sorry, Nigel, should have checked out more often. You're making it say there should be one. It's private, so it's got to be provided, but can't because it's private. So you want to do equals really to make one of these things up front. That will hopefully fix the problem. Let's find out. And it's 1936. I've got to go to the bathroom really fast. Come on, build faster. Build face. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so actually only there are a couple of very small problems here. One was that you want to have equals set any cancelable there, Brad, in movie detail view at Swift. And the other one was in content view. You had just search results equals open and close like that. I don't even know what that means really. You want to say it is a search result with no results by default. Those are the only two issues actually. So you're very, very close. There's two little hiccups in those places. And then a Cocoa Pals, which is brilliant. There are other questions. I've seen them. I've got to go to the bathroom really fast. Otherwise, I'll be talking even faster than usual when I'm trying to complete this. I'll back in 2 minutes or so. Real fast. Sorry. Okay. Let's carry on. Questions. Eric, am I going to use binding extensions for optional handling? No, I'm not. No, we only have time for a handful of things here, and we only have an hour and a half left. There isn't time for that, I'm afraid. Francois. I said I wouldn't organize a project that way. I don't see namespace. What's the best way to structure a SwiftUI project? It's, again, better isn't the word I'd use. A is the word I'd use, a way of organizing. When working on large projects, you cannot use models, views, and similar, right? You just can't. You end up with nothing. You end up with a gigantic mess of work. And if you look at the way I do it in, say, Unwrap, which is available on GitHub, it gives you an idea of how I do it. I think about what things are trying to do as much as possible, so I can find them more easily. So here is Unwrap here. You can see activities, sections of the app. Is it the welcome screen? Is it the home screen? Is it the learn screen? Like there's glossary, study, review, and so forth. So I group them by what they're trying to do, as opposed to having all the models in one place, all the controllers, all the views separated like that, because that's not how my brain works. If I'm working on a feature, I'm doing a bit of view code, a bit of model code, a bit of controller code at the same time. I'm mixing and matching between those three more easily, as opposed to all having a load of models that aren't really related side by side. I prefer to organize it more like this, so you can see, what are you actually trying to achieve. This is a fairly big project, right? It's in a lot of code in this, so it's indicative of how I do it in larger projects. It's on GitHub. Go and check it out. github.com/2straws/unwrap. It's open source and on the App Store. Questions. Eric, no, I'm not going to do any special optional handling here at all. In fact, you'll see I take a very different approach here. The Ultimate Portfolio app course is about core data everywhere. There's no fetching of things using decoding. It's all core data powered across the board. And so, no, I'm not using that approach here at all. Is there a security risk? I mean, yes, technically there is. API keys for this app are obviously free. You can get them for free of charge. If you want to do it properly, you would snag the key from a server using encryption and store it in the keychain, as opposed to hard coding it in the app. Here, the API is free. I mean, there's nothing they can do or not do with it that they couldn't just do themselves. So I'm not terribly worried about it in this particular instance. Is core data the best way to handle lots of JSON data that changes every few minutes? No, I would say not. Core data is often not the best way to manage anything, bluntly. And with lots of data changing regularly, no. I would store in the least offensive way possible. Unless you really want filtering, sorting, and all that jazz that core data brings. Like relationships are brilliant. I love them, but Anyway, okay. We fixed Brad's code. We fixed our code. We're good to go. Okay. It's now time for the core data exploration. We want to load this when our app starts up. Fire up core data, load our database, get it moving, and work with it. And the best way of doing this is with a persistence controller, or a data controller, I normally call it because it's shorter. And it just loads core data for you, manages saving, manages any requests you want to make for you. I'm going to worry about handling your data correctly. It's all through a data controller. You know core data is going to be there. And so we're going to make a new class inside our project. Hopefully. New save file. And when it loads, call this thing data controller. If you use the Xcode SwiftUI template, they call it persistence controller. It's the same thing. Some way of handling core data in one central location. This thing needs to have core data. I've got a new class inside called data controller, which is critically an observable object. This thing will directly say, my data has changed. Respond somehow. It'll notify anything watching it if it needs to. It's going to have inside it one NS persistent container, which is our core data store. We're loading there. It'll have an initializer with an optional property here. In memory, bool is false. And that's there so that we can do previewing if you want to. You have a custom in-memory only one for previewing purposes only, or testing purposes, just so you can not make changes to the real app while you're working. We'll make our container be a new NS persistent container with the name of main. And if we are in memory, we're going to rewrite its store description to be dev null. Just don't store anything. Any changes we're writing are in RAM only. As soon as the app terminates, it's just gone. It's wiped out completely. It's great for testing, great for previewing. It's really, really helpful to have this in SwiftUI projects. So we'll say container.persistent store descriptions .first .URL equals, if we're in memory, the URL where we're storing stuff should be URL file URL with path /dev/null. That is a Unix path, meaning basically a black hole, oblivion. Nothing goes there. You can write whatever you want to dev null and it's completely ignored. It just goes away into oblivion. If we're memory only. After that, we'll say container.load persistent stores. This will give us some values through. In one case, a description if you want it, but also more critically, an error. And if that error has anything inside it, our app is doomed. I mean, I honestly, I wouldn't know what to do. Show an error, nothing else. That's all you can do. You cannot load core data for some reason. Why not? It's a really serious failure. So I'll do if let error equals error, fatal error loading store with error.localized description. And that's it. That's all we're going to do initializing our stuff here. We're also going to add, though, a method to save stuff. Func save. This is going to call inside it try container.viewContext.save. So it passes the save call down to the internal core data view context. That might sound tedious. Why bother having that at all? The answer is because we're only calling save if container.viewContext.has changes. Only attempt to save our data if we need to. Don't burn through CPU cycles doing something that isn't necessary. Only if we have changes do we call save. And that's our data controller. We're going to add more imminently, but that's enough for now. Do we have changes? Yes, we do. Save it out. What we want to do is as soon as our app launches, create one of these, keep it alive the entire time, and put it into the environment for any part of our program to use. Anyone can use this in any screen if they need it, and pull this thing out and use it. So in mymovies app.swift here, we'll say there's a new @state object, private var, data controller equals data controller. So make one as soon as our app starts and keep it alive the entire time. Never let it go away. Once that's done, we can go ahead and inject it into the environment for our content view. We can say content view dot environment / .managed object context is data controller .container .view context, and environment object data controller. So we're actually injecting it twice, more or less. This one here, environment object, passes the whole data controller in. So any of you that want the data controller to call save or other methods we're going to add shortly can just get out the environment. The second one injects only the core data managed object context into the environment, because all of SwiftUI's helper code to make core data less horrible relies on that being set. It just magically expects that to be there. If it isn't, it gets angry. We have to inject it twice, once for us and once for SwiftUI. And that's our setup work done. So our next step is to go back to movie detail view and add a toolbar button to handle toggling a heart. Is it a favorite or not? Question is, how can we tell if something's a favorite? So Marcus asks, can you make it run with iOS 13 without @state object? Yes, you've got to make it a singleton basically, and then use @observed object everywhere. It's got to be kept alive somewhere. That's the key. So you'd have a singleton data controller.shared, have a private init, and then inject that into the environment. I mean, realistically, I don't tend to mention this too much to folks. I don't want to hurt their brains at all. But very often, what you can do, not here, is actually just inject it straight into the environment. You could do like data control like that, because the environment will retain the object for you automatically. You haven't got to declare it as state object as well. I prefer to do both. I don't trust assumptions, but you could do that if you wanted to for some situations. So how can we tell if a particular movie, Batman Returns, Dark Knight, whatever, is a favorite or not? And the answer is pretty simple. We're just going to search core data. We're going to say, hey, core data, does an object with this ID exist already in your data somewhere? And if so, if there's more than 0 of these things, it means it's a favorite. Otherwise, it's not a favorite. This is done using a fetch request, an NS fetch request. And we're actually going to use this fetch request more than once. Because when we're toggling a favorite, like make it a favorite or delete a favorite, we'll want the same fetch request. So we'll make one method to make a reusable fetch request and one to perform a count on it. Is it a favorite or not? Both of these will be in our data controller over here. So first things first, a method that creates a fetch request for a particular movie. It's going to look for, does this movie exist somewhere in the data? That's it. It doesn't run it, doesn't evaluate it, just prepares it ready to be run. So we'll say func fetch request for movie. And return an NS fetch request generic over a saved movie. Now remember, this is the mapping between core data land and our Swift structed land, right? We're looking for movies, but core data expects to work with saved movies. It has to be an NS managed object subclass to continue. So first things first, we'll say make a fetch request, which is an NS fetch request generic over saved movie, which is save movie dot fetch request. That's made for us, created for us by CodeGen. Xcode is generating code for us for the saved movie entity we added in our data model. It makes a fetch request right there for us we can use. But now we're going to say this thing has a predicate, a filter. Look for a particular thing. And in this case, we'll look for NS predicate. Oops, Daisy. Hello, mouse. Where are you? NS predicate. NS predicate, please. There we go. NS predicate. NS predicate with a format of does the ID equal some kind of number? And which number? Well, movie.id. Look for that. So we're looking for the movie's ID number, 268 for Batman, where it was, 10 for Star Wars, someone said. Look for that in our database somewhere. And it finds it, brilliant. We'll return that fetch request. So literally all we're doing is making a fetch request to look for a particular movie. We haven't said what to do with it, how to run it, what we're doing at the result, Just look for this movie in our database somewhere. That's what one method does here. And we're using it twice in total, which is why it's its own method. Now we can write a method. Is this thing a favorite movie or not? By using that fetch request for movie method. We'll say func is favorite movie, bool. So is this thing a favorite movie or not? And we can decide that by getting our fetch request first, fetch request for movie, and then reading the count for that fetch request. How many items match that check? So I'll say let count be equal to parens try question mark container dot view context dot count for that fetch request. Nil coalescing 0. So attempt to run the count for that. It should always work, but who knows? If it fails, it's okay. Assume it's 0. And now we know how many times that movie exists in our core data store. It should only once, ever. But we'll assume anything that's not 0 means it exists. So I'll do return count is greater than 0. So if count's 1, or God forbid 2, or who knows what, it means it's been marked as a favorite already. If it's 0, it's not a favorite. That's it. So with those together, we can now upgrade our Swift UI views to handle favoriting of information, to understand is this thing a favorite or not. So in movie detail view, here, we're going to read out our data controller from the environment so we can call methods on it. Kyla asks, could it be a property stored on a movie itself? I mean, could it? Yes. How would it talk to core data? You have to inject core data into your model or make it available from the model. I mean, you could use a core data singleton, but it gets really messy. You know, fine, the data model layer is one layer in your code. In theory, you can talk between layers inside data model fairly well. But our structs right now are simple beasts, and I like keeping them that way. They don't have much going on in them. They're simple things. I wouldn't want to add core data logic into there. It gets awfully messy. You kind of end up with spaghetti code where views talk to models talk back up to core data, which then talks to views again. It gets round and about quite a lot. I'd rather keep it sort of unidirectional if possible. Anyway, inside our movie detail view, we can now add a toolbar. We can say, hey, is this thing a favorite or not? And we can do that because we've injected our data controller into the environment. Back in our app.swift file, we know the data controller is going to be there. So we actually say up here, add a new property here to read that data controller back out of the environment. So at environment object var data controller is a data controller. Read it back out again. Now you're going to want to add that to your preview as well to keep it happy. Otherwise, it will complain it can't find a data controller. And so down your preview, just do environment object a data controller just to keep it happy for your previewing. So now our view understands, hey, I can talk to core data now. Brilliant. It doesn't understand its core data behind the scenes, just a data controller. It's quite abstract, which is great, but it can do it. And so in our view, we already have our nav title and say on appear and so forth. We can add in here a toolbar. Adding functionality. We could say this thing's got a button inside the toolbar. We'll put in more code to come here for a second. And a label for this button is going to be if data controller is favorite movie, then image. I'm going to use SF symbols, system name, heart.fill. Else, image, system name, heart. Yes, Santiago. Yes, in memory should be true. Sorry. Thank you very much. Good catch. Do you need core data? Do we? I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm not sure why you would need to. It seems happy. Well, it seems slow, but it always seems slow, doesn't it? That much hasn't changed. Oh, it's very slow, isn't it? Dear me. I need a faster Mac. Yeah, it's fine. The point is, Alex, that our SwiftUI views aren't thinking about, I've got, core data here. Because you might switch to Firebase, I don't know what, Realm, Mongo, Codable, I don't care what, something else in the future. You don't necessarily want to attach things to core data unless, if you can avoid it, Ideally, you can get it out of the way if possible, as much as you can. You can't always do it, but as much as you can, you won't do it. Yeah, exactly. Afterwards, you could just save JSON files, encode it back to JSON, and write that to disk if you wanted to. That's also fine. Point is that ideally, you want to avoid core data. It's always possible. Sometimes you want to actually show core data code in there that we'll do later on. You've got to use core data as it is, but not ideal. Is it possible to make a generic fetch request with types for the returned value? Yeah, it is. Yeah, just because it's not really generic. It's a parent class that all your core data types come from NS managed object. So it's really you use that instead rather than generics. Engineer, yes, CloudKit, of course. CloudKit's there waiting for you if you wanted to use. I'm not going to do it here. Sorry, but if you were to do it, you'd use NS persistent CloudKit container here and here. And you kind of get CloudKit out of the box. You have to add the CloudKit capability and have an actual Apple developer account and sign into iCloud and all that jazz, but you get core data sharing between devices, which is very nice. Where was I? Oh yes, toolbar buttons. Which I've lost. Where did it go? Movie DW. Okay. So at this point, it vaguely works. I mean, it technically is functioning. The equator works, and it'll read his favorite or not, and it's fine. But you can't see it working because its favorite will always return false. There's no actual favoriting code happening yet. To do this, we need to add another method data controller to handle toggling of favorites. Again, I don't really want our SwiftUI view to be thinking about that. As much as you can, not always, because you can't always do it, but as much as you can, get core data's code out of your SwiftUI views and put it somewhere else. And that means here, in data controller, adding methods to toggle movies being a favorite or not. And it will do all the work for us. It'll say, am I favorite ready? No, then, bail out and whatever. So we'll say, func toggle favorite. It takes a movie. Come on, Hudson _ movie. The first thing I'm going to do is say, hey, my data is about to change. Notify any watching views, things are about to change. Get ready to update your UI. So we're going to say, object will change, .send. Now, we'll make a fetch request for that movie. Boom. Read it back. Now, what we can do here, we know there should only ever be one. We don't care about going beyond that. So we could do fetch request dot fetch limit equals 1. don't try and read more than 2, right? Doesn't matter here, we're using count. Count will always summarize to a single answer. We care about this one here because it'll try and read many at the same time if they exist. So don't scan the whole table, just stop as soon as you find one. And now we can say let matching items equals try container.viewContext.fetch that fetch request. Run the code, give me back all the matching movies right here. And it's down to us now. It could be empty, could be items in there. If it's empty, it means it's not a favorite. If it has items, it means it is a favorite. So what we'll do is we'll say if let first item equals matching items question mark dot first. So if we can read the first item that was sent back to us, it means that yes, it's already a favorite. Great. Well, great, my code completion stopped working for a start, but great, it means we can use this darn thing. We can say container.viewContext.delete that first item. So if it's already a favorite, just delete it. It's no longer a favorite. Where things are more complex is in the else. Because at this point, we need to make this thing a favorite, which means to save that struct in core data. And this is not straightforward because it's a Swift struct. It does not go into core data. That's not how core data works. We need to make this thing into a saved movie and copy across all the values. There's no magic shortcut here, I'm afraid. We've got to do it by hand and make sure it all works correctly. So we'll say let's save movie equals a saved movie with movie.id. Oh, no, sorry, movie ID, sorry. Context is container.viewContext, like that. And now copy across one by one all the properties of this darn thing. And I'm going to just go ahead and swipe this from movie, maybe? There we go. Steal this lot here. Paste them in. And then basically replace this with save movie. Again and again and again. So we're just converting our Swift struct into a core data struct. This last one's special, but I'll do it to one side for now. The ID is an int32 in core data, not an int. We're going to do int32 movie.id. This thing is movie.title. This thing is movie.overview. This thing is movie.release date. This thing is movie.voteaverage. Then movie.poster path. Movie.backdrop path. And genre IDs, fine, this is a bit special. We're going to say save movie.genres equals movie.genres. And what we want here is to get just the IDs from this. Can we just join that directly? No, we can't. Of course we can't. Okay, we'll do genres then. Oh, sure we can join that somehow. You nasty little thing. If I do array that, maybe let me do it then. Genre IDs dot joined. Humbug. It's clearly not a good move for me today. Join me. No. Bah. Okay. All I want to do is basically say movies movie.genres .map ID, just without calling genres ideally. Anyway, that can be joined. That can be joined like that. You probably have to try. I mean, because genres comes back as the IDs of the genres as well. I just want the ID numbers really. You have to probably convert to string, wouldn't you? Ugh. Movie dot genre IDs. Yeah. Then map that to string.init and then join that. I mean, that's better, isn't it? That's better. Yeah, that's better. I prefer that one because, you know, the problem with calling genres is it has to go into that whole compact map thing again, which we don't really care about. We just care about what are the actual ID numbers we're working with. So I think bypassing it is a good idea. Anyway, that's good. So all we've done is convert our struct into an object that goes into a core data context. We don't want to try and put our struct into core data. That's not how it works. It likes being its own little world in its view context and being happy. Either way, if we're deleting or creating after the else block, we call save. Commit these changes, right? And now we can go back to our movie details view here. And this more code to come block becomes data controller, dot toggle favorite movie. Mark it a favorite if it isn't a favorite, otherwise mark it not a favorite. And in theory, if you've managed to follow along with my impromptu fixing up of genre IDs, in theory, this will actually vaguely work, at least partly, because we can.
I can't dislike that music.
Cool. Great, thanks Siri for jumping in there. Whew. Stop. Okay, James. I'll wait here. Do we need add save movie somewhere in the container? Just creating it in the container is how it works. That's it. Just doing that, creating it in the view context, is how core data links it all together. You haven't got poster path. That was added quite a while ago. It should be in the model, in the core data XE model, XE data model D file. Yes, in save movie, exactly. So in your XE data model D, this one here, you should have poster path string, backdrop path string. There. Kyla, you know, it is magic. It really is magic, and that's part of the problem with core data. Too much magic going on. You know, if you look at what it's doing behind the scenes, whoo, you know, it'll show you the code gen. But this thing, it's showing it's blank, useless. It's at NS managed, at NS managed, at NS managed. It's just grim. Let's try this one perhaps. There we go. Look at that. Just grim. And optionality galore all over the place. Helpfully, one nice thing is they make the thing conform to identifiable out of the box, which is very helpful. Santiago asks, after calling object change.send, how long will it wait? It's not time-based, it's run loop-based. It'll wait until the whole current run loop has finished, i.e. all your methods have returned. There's no more work happening on the main thread. It'll then restart the run loop looking for, you know, touch inputs and whatever it wants to work with. And it will trigger all your work. Kyla, there's not much I like about core data in Swift. It was fine in Objective-C, but it causes all sorts of problems in Swift. Honestly, it's really an unhelpful citizen in Swift. Anyway, hopefully we have made some progress. James has added the missing poster pass string attribute to the thing. Ambiguous use of init. I need more information, James. Where is the ambiguous use of init? Well, down here on string init and on the genres line, presumably. I'm guessing. I don't know. Any more clarification on that one? Right, okay. So that's the exact line of code there. It needs to be, if I put it all on one line, there you go. Movie.genreIDs, not genres, .map, string.init, joined, separator, comma. So it means convert my set of int IDs into an array of strings of those numbers, then join them by a comma. The type of that should be a string. Genres should be a string. Because it doesn't handle set ints or even array ints. It should be a flat old string. Works. Brilliant. Okay. So the code basically works, right? At this point, it's not. And this is toggle favorite. What? Oh, so you'll see it, presumably, I hope. I'm just calling it in there. Like that, in the button action. Data controller, in that case, Eric, should be data controller colon data controller, the capital D a second time around. So, let's go up to the top again. It should be like that. Edward. We're not creating one, we're saying we inherit it from the environment. That's the key here. It already exists. Just use the one that exists there already. That's the idea. Okay, so our code should now partly work. If I press Command R to build and run my code in slow motion, Xcode, there we go. We should be able to favorite things. I mean, you can't see the favorites anywhere, but it should at least in theory remember that we have favorited things. Let's find out. Let's give it a test drive. I haven't made any comedy mistakes so far, so there's still ample scope for comedy mistakes to happen. So let's look in here. I'm going to search for our old pal, Batman. Come on. There we go. So I'm going to go to Batman Begins. Press the heart button. It's now staying on. I go back. Choose it again. It's still on. Back into the first Batman. It's off. Let's search for a different film. Not Superman. Let's search for Martian. And I'll favorite that thing. Great. Still there. Loving it. Let's go back to Batman again. And it was Batman Begins. And there it is. Okay. So it's working. I mean, we've marked it as a film we like, but you can't see them anywhere. So we're kind of part way through this thing, right? What we now want to do, of course, is actually have a favorites view where you can see the films you've liked, at least. Show us the name Batman and Martian, whatever you chose in your particular layout. And to do that, we're going to make a new SwiftUI view. I'll press Command N. Choose SwiftUI view. And press Next. And call this thing Favorites View. Then press Create. Now here, I'm going to give this thing some core data objects to work with directly. And this is where that whole managed object context thing in the environment we put into the app becomes important. This thing's going to have a fetch request. Load this data from core data. That's how it works in SwiftUI. And we aren't going to tell it where to load it from. It's not going to know that data controller at all. It just understands this means loading data from core data. That's how SwiftUI's link with core data works. So we'll say up here, our favorites view has at fetch request. Load some data. And this takes a bunch of parameters. First, what do you want to load? What entity? For us, it's going to be saved movie.entity. Entity. Load me a saved movie, please. That's what we're looking for here. We can provide sort descriptors. How should core data sort our results? This is an array. You can do ascending this one, then descending this one. It's complex. It's powerful. This is why core data is so useful. We're going to say our descriptors are going to be an NS sort descriptor with, oh, it's slow. Key path is going to be /saved movie.title ascending true. So sort by title alphabetically, ascending. And that's our entire fetch request. We'll then say this thing's called saved movies. As a type of fetched results, saved movie. And that tells core data everything it needs to know to load our data. I want to load saved movies. I'll sort them by title ascending, I put them into an array called saved movies. And now this thing can be used. This thing will automatically contain all the saved movies added now, and it'll watch for changes to core data and update itself as new objects are added and removed. So it'll stay synchronized to core data automatically. It's very nice. Or as nice as core data gets anyway. We can now use it. We can say in our favorites view, we've got a navigation view. Then we'll have a list of saved movies. The movie coming in. Then do text movie.title nil coalescing unknown movie. This thing here, title, is an optional string. We've got to do a nil coalescing for unknown movie to make it at least look good. Let's add a nav title of favorites. So that is a wholly separate view for looking at, selecting, even deleting later on if you want to do, favorites. That's what it's designed to do. And as a result, I think it should work side by side with our main view. It shouldn't be presenting, push and pop. They're side by side. There should be a tab view, quite frankly, where you can see both tabs and choose the one you want at any given time. And so we can make that happen inside content view over here. My movies app, here. It's where we make our content view. Rather than just saying, yep, content views are our entire UI, instead, we'll wrap that inside a tab view. Like this. So the tab view is a top level thing, and that has the environment object and the environment manage object context attached to the tab view rather than to the content view. So everything inside tab view, both tabs, get access to those two environment values. So we have a content view as well as a favorites view. But it's a tab view. You really want to attach a tab item to both these things with an icon and a text. So it's obvious what these things do, otherwise just a blank tab bar at the bottom. So I'll say our content view tab item is label search system image what is it, magnifying glass, like that. And favorites view had a tab item with the label of favorites system image star. The main thing is you're attaching these two modifiers, environment object, to the tab view, because that will automatically let them filter down into the content view and the favorites view at the same time. Everyone who wants those things gets them if they want it, right? Don't put it onto the content view still, put it onto the tab view. And now this should actually vaguely work. Well, I've favorited a few movies. I should be able to see them. Let's find out. Fun thing is, as I'm streaming, my Mac's working flat out. Mine runs so slowly, you probably realize already if it's got a bug in it or not, because yours is running much faster. Particularly if you ever had the M1. They're busy on Twitter by now, presumably, because the thing ran ages ago. So there's our movies. I've got a favorites tab. Boom. Batman Begins and The Martian. So we can now see our favoriting not only changes the heart icon between selected and not selected, it also appears in the favorites tab at the same time. It's not ideal though. This could be better. Really, this thing should use the same movie row view that our search results used. So they can both have this nice layout. Thanks, NJ Rom. Yes, that's about right. Yeah. Finished before we even started. That's how fast it is. This thing should use the same movie row view. James, yes. Yes, James. Favorites view. Favorites view. Show. Okay. There you go. This thing should show the same even. And that's hard to do because there are two approaches to making it work. And our whole setup here, all our code so far, is based around movies. Data controller is a favorite movie. Yes, it is, or not my favorite movie, whatever. Our movie row takes a movie. Our movie detail view takes a movie. And core data has saved movies. And they're not the same. Yes, one's called Save Movie, one's called Movie, but under the hood, they're very different beasts. Keep in mind, we had to do nil coalescing here because it might not be there, right? So if you want to make Save Movie and Movie interchangeable, you've got to do quite a lot of work. You'd have to start making a new protocol called Movie Protocol and make Movie conform to that, which it would do out of the box. You'd have all the same properties on Movie as a Movie Protocol. It'd be the same thing, so it'd work out of the box. But then you have to make Save Movie conform to the protocol. And that's a pain in the backside because it can't have all these things. Save movie.title is an optional string. So it can't conform to the protocol. You'd have to go back to your core data and make them have different names. Saved title, saved overview, saved vote average, saved different titles. And then your protocol conformance say, fine, save movie conforms to movie protocol. When you want title, use save title or nil coalescing unknown movie. When you want overview, use saved overview, nil coalescing unknown overview, whatever it is, again and again and again. It's just so much junk, quite frankly, so much nonsense to make this thing conform to the protocol. And once you'd finally done that, then everywhere you used movie, for example, in your movie row, you'd say it's a movie protocol everywhere. So it's not impossible to do this, but you end up spreading the plague of core data throughout your project. And if your project's designed for that, if you have a core data project where the fundamentals of your project is your data everywhere, there's no stuff coming remotely, just all local objects, then fine, of course, you've got a choice. Let the infection run rampant. But here, we don't need that. We don't want that. We want our data to be isolated and clean and good. So James is saying, save movies cannot find. I'm guessing you mean here in favorites view, for me, line 20, this bit here. If that's the case, it'll be up here. Make sure it's called saved movies in the @fetch request property at the top here. That's where it comes from. James? Yes. So it comes from that line there. Make sure it's called saved movies. What if we load from internet? So what if you load? So if you were to save your favorites in the cloud, for example, you had a server somewhere that retrieved JSON, whatever your favorites were, then yeah, you could eliminate core data entirely and have no classes, have no saved movie type, have another sort of shim between class and struct going on. It's much nicer. Eric, I haven't done that yet. I'm about to do exactly that. But I'm saying it's complex. That's my long rant. It's more complex than you might expect as the TLDR. You could just do the movie ID. Of course you could. But then it's not enough. Like, you want this to be able to see the overview and the title. Like, that's what we're doing here. We're saving the basics of our data so you can see more when you're offline. That's kind of the point of it. James, is your code working now? Is there a more obvious error message? I'm just kind of hanging around here again. It's that code there. Should be your saved movies property. That's where it comes from. So it can't find saved movies here. There's literally nowhere else it could be than up here. Working, great. Okay. So like I said, to make this thing work with movie row in favorites, using both struct and classes, normally doesn't matter. But the fact that core data has optionality absolutely everywhere completely sinks that. It makes it very, very hard to do. And so we're not going to do that. It's really nasty way of approach. Instead, what we're going to do is have a simpler approach here. Inside our favorites for view here, we're going to convert between saved movies and movie as needed. This will only happen when changes happen. It's not, triggering this 1,000 times a second. It's very rare. When you add a favorite, reconvert. And it'll make the rest of our UI much, much simpler, as you'll see. So we're going to have a new property in this thing called favorite movies. which is a movie array. And this thing is going to go ahead and convert all of saved movies into an array of regular movies. Again, only as needed. It's called only when you add or remove favorites. So it's not a particularly high stress method to be calling. We'll call savemovies.map to convert it. Map movie in. First things first, remember the genre IDs thing? We've got an array of comma separated values and it's got to go back to a set of integers. That's what we need here. So we'll say, first things first, let genre IDs equals movie.genres, which of course is an optional string, dot components separated by comma. So it'll be an array of strings now, 1, 2, 3, for example. We'll then put that through compact map because we'll put it through compact map int.init. Convert every string in that array into an integer. So we get back an int array now. If any strings fail the test of converting from string to int, discard them. It won't do because it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Just in case, unwrap and discard any nils. If genres is missing completely, if the optional is nil, then empty array. And now we can send back a new movie, a converted movie. So we'll say return movie, passing in all these values. There are lots. It's the same thing in reverse. So our ID will be int of movie.id, title, movie.title, overview, movie.overview, release date, movie.release date, average, movie.average, poster path, movie.poster path, backdrop, movie.backdrop path, and the genre IDs will pass in a set of genre IDs. So just convert them across into a set. So it's the opposite thing we did elsewhere. Now, it's going to complain galore eventually because wrap bag, core data, optionals absolutely everywhere. It's just grim. So nil coalescing, empty string. Nil coalescing, empty string. Release date, nil coalescing, empty string. I mean, really, this is the kind of plague we want to avoid inflicting on the rest of our code. Get it out of the way once. Make sure movie is the exact format we expect everywhere else. All those hideous nils are all gone away. Optionals all gone away. Nice and clean, ready to use elsewhere. And that will be made whenever we ask it to. Whenever we insert a favorite or remove a favorite, it will recalculate the array very, very fast and very efficient. And we can now use that inside our body. We can say, make a list of our favorite movies. And just like before, say row content is movie row.init. And now we are sharing our layouts because it is the correct simple structs we expect to have all the time. It's much, much nicer way of working. I press Command B. It should hopefully build first time. There have been 0 common mistakes so far, so maybe it happens soon. Oh, seems happy. Let's find out. Let's run it back. Come on. Come on. You can do it. Poor laptop's worked hard today. It's just constantly scorching hot. Big white screen. There we go. I'll choose favorites. Boom. I'll have The Martian. Great. Read about it here. Unfavorite. Go back. It's gone away. Back to search again. Let's look for a different movie. My 11-year-old just watched Austin Powers. She found it quite challenging to watch, as you might imagine. Are you going to work? There we go. Yes. favorite that one, and our favorites, boom, it appears straight away because it's synchronizing correctly. You know, Kyla, I expect it's just a simulator being grim. It shouldn't lag at load time. Nothing actually happens. I expect, unless there's some hideous Swift UI bug I'm not aware of. Anyway, let's have a look. Oh, it's 3:30. We're loads of time still. Navigation view in favorites. Yeah, just that. Well, it's not necessarily it's reminding you. It's more that it's telling you the key movie facts you want to know on the move. But you're right. Obviously, everyone knows their favorite films. That blew up my detail view when tapping a favorite movie. Odd. No, it looks fine. You mean it made it crash, presumably, Jeremy? I'm guessing that's what you mean. There we go. A watch list. That's a good reason for it. Thanks, Drew. That's a curious bug. Haven't got that in mind. Don't know. Don't know. Okay. We still have another 26 minutes to go. So I'm going to add one last feature into our code, which is to handle user reviews. So we're going to let people, you know, for some silly idea, let them post their own reviews to our movies. Now, there is a whole post API from TMDB, which requires authentication from the user as well. Ain't going near that. We haven't got time for that. Much, much simpler approach here. I've written a really trivial little API to handle movie reviews. And we're going to use that here. And it's the simplest possible thing. What's your review text? That's it. You can just post in all the text you like within reason. Other folks will see the same text. Nothing hideously abusive, please. So we'll do a real simple thing. Let's let us post via Codable too, which I've mentioned earlier. I'd like to do, but I have time for it. Well, now's the time. We're going to post via Codable as well to upload data to the internet and then retrieve the results back and do something with them. So this is going to be a new data model struct called review that is codable this time because it's got to be encoded and decoded from the internet and post it on the internet up to my server, my simple API. So what we're going to do is we're going to say first command N to make a new file, then make a Swift file, and then call this thing review.swift. And really, it's as simple as it can be. A review must be codable and identifiable, so we can show them in a loop in SwiftUI. ID will be a string, text will be a string. That's our entire system. Next up, we're going to add some properties to movie detail view over here to handle creating and posting reviews. So we'll say, anywhere really, here's fine. At state, private var, reviews is an empty review array. Good fix, Jeremy. Hold on. So by default, there are no reviews. Of course, I'm going to fetch these from the internet as we go. We'll then do at state private var review text equals empty string. Now this thing is going to be, oops daisy, this thing is going to be a empty string by default, but backed up by a text editor. So we get full multi-line text inside a scrolling area. You might know that SwiftUI with scrolling text editors and scroll views around it. Be careful with that. Make sure you get the right sizing. You want to give your text editor a fixed size to avoid. Hello. To avoid scrolling problems. But it's not too hard to do. Oh. Last chance now. I've only got like 20 minutes to go. Good dog. Don't drool on me again. Right. So, we're going to get the array reviews from the internet and our own review text. Both these things, you're going to use a review URL. What URL do you want to receive? Now, my API is super simple. It's the same URL for reading and writing data. One's get, one's post. And so we'll share this as a review URL property. This is going to be a URL with the string, and it's https:// hackingwithswift.com/samples/iOS Accelerator /movie.id. I'm going to paste that into the chat. It is that. It might have shortened the URL for you. Yes, it has done. Thanks. You hopefully get the idea. That's the correct URL. That thing is for getting and posting data. Next up, we've got our area for reviews, got our URL to post to. Third, we've got to actually send a review somehow. No chance. Send a review to that URL, and so that means we're now posting data. We're now writing data to the internet, not just reading all the time. And that means adding another help method to our URL session. Send this data up there, get back some kind of message back, whatever it's going to be. So, in our data controller here, not data controller, sorry, URL session here, add a new method called post. And this is going to post some kind of value up to the internet. What do you want to do with it? What's it going to be? Well, let's find out. We can start by saying, I want to have some kind of encodable data. You know, what it's going to be? Is it going to be, hey, well done, Tim. What are we trying to send? Well, in our case, it'll be encoded review. What are we trying to do with it? Well, it's going to go up to HTTP and so forth. No, what do you clear off? Come on, go away. Go away. Here we go. So we're going to say it's some kind of encodable data. We don't really care what. Review for us, but could be anything at all. So we'll say post T encodable. Data is that T. So post my review array, for example. To URL, a URL. And then completion, we'll say again, is an at escaping. Now in this instance, my API is really simple. When you post data, you'll get a string back. Okay, or nothing at all. I think I remember correctly. Okay, nothing at all. So I'll say this thing will expect a string coming back with the result of this call, with nothing else coming back from that, and then another any cancelable. So we're now sending data. And this completion closure will be called with the result of sending that data. What did the server say as a result of sending it? Now this time we don't want to send a URL directly. We want to use a URL request. They're customizable. You can add more information to them. So we can say our request is a URL request, URL. And we now customize that. So by default it'd be a get, read. We want to do a post, write. So I'll do request.http method, which is a string, is post. I'm now writing data. In particular, got this exactly right, we're doing request set value for HTTP header field. we've got to tell the server what kind of thing we're sending. In our case, we're sending, oops, daisy. Oh, what is it? Once again, the cursor's completely lost. Come on, you horror show, where are you? Cursor. Oh, there it is. We want to send application/JSON. It's a MIME type. I'm sending JSON across the wire to my server to parse, futz with, and respond to. It's not just text or a zip file or who knows what. It's JSON. And the header field in HTTP is going to be content-type. So we're sending JSON content. That's what it means. So that's configured our request. Our next job is to encode our data into that request so it knows what we're actually sending. So we'll say let encoder equals JSON encoder. Our request HTTP body even is try encoder.encode our data. So attach that to the request. So whatever the text they've written, make it into data, attach it to the request, and send it off. And now it's more or less what we had before. We're going to say return. We are in URL session, so we'll do data task publisher for request this time. Same thing, but it takes your request for our request. And the question is, what do we want to do? Now, in this case, I've made it real simple. That'll send it off to the server. It'll get results coming back. What's it going to be? And I've made it as simple as possible. We're going to get back a string. So I'll map the data in response and just get a string version of that data. The simplest possible thing we can get away with. We'll say string decoding data as utf8.self. That'll be the word OK, if it worked. It's just, honestly, it couldn't be any simpler, or nothing at all for errors, I think. If that fails, we'll do replace error with decode error, just so you can see it hasn't worked so well. Then do our receive on, run loop.main, and then sync receive value completion. Send back that string. And hopefully it's syncing now in slow motion. Come on, you can do it. Did it finish? I think it finished, didn't it? Great. Yeah, it works. So that lets us post any kind of codable data to a server somewhere as JSON, which will receive and respond to as a string. If you had more advanced stuff, you'd exactly copy the same kind of thing we have with our original decodable, except now you'd have input encodable, output decodable, escaping output, and then decode to, I'll be this thing here, actually, wouldn't it be this? Map data decode output.self, right? We aren't doing that here. We're not getting codable data back. We're just getting a string saying, okay, simplest possible type imaginable. Anyway, that's our method to post data to the internet. With that in place, we can now go back to our movie detail view and make this thing post reviews. So we'll say there's a new method down here somewhere, right at the bottom. Here we go. Func submit review. So when they try and submit a review, what should we do? Well, simple. First things first. Guard review text dot is empty is false, else return. Don't accept empty reviews. Of course, you can still submit a space if you wanted to, but yeah, you get the point. Don't allow empty reviews. We'll then make a new review. We'll say our review object is a review with the ID of uuid.uuid string. So a random identifier. A text being their review text. Now we'll read out our review URL and post to it. So I'll say guard let review URL equals review URL else return, and send our review to that URL using let request equals URL session dot shared dot post that review to that URL. Where is it? There it is. And completion, string back in, result. And again, it's super simple, right? If the result is the word okay, it worked. If result is equal to okay, then hooray. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to add it to our reviews array. It worked. Hooray, we've got a new review. And clear review text. Make it an empty string. And that will add it to our UI. And critically, make sure you do requests.insert that request to add it to the list of in-flight requests that happen right now. That's my set up here of any cancelable. So we're tracking a request for everything they submit so it stays alive the entire time. It isn't killed prematurely. And now almost done. To the very end of this whole thing, which is great. We now have to add a little bit of UI to make our whole review actually work. And so what I say is, up in our UI, somewhere, I think, like below the crew. Yeah, it's a long view body. I really wouldn't suggest having quite so much code in your view body in one view body, that's for sure. We're going to add a bit of UI to handle reviews. So we'll say as a text for reviews in font title again. And then for each review we have, there, review in. Come on, there we go. I'll just do text review.text and .font.body.italic. Submit review. There you go. Yeah. So if the review is empty, do nothing. In fact, let's even move that higher up. Let's just do that. There's no point doing the first one second. If the review is empty, do nothing at all. If the review URL isn't working, do nothing at all. Otherwise, make a review struct from that text plus a random identifier. Send it off to the server. Read the results string that comes back. If that's okay, it means a review was accepted successfully. Append it to our reviews array and clear the review text field. Make sure you have requests insert that request. You've got to stash it away in the any cancelable set. Otherwise, it'll be destroyed immediately and the post won't happen. Once you have that, that's when the view work comes in. I'm just modifying the SwiftUI view body up here. So we'll get the reviews title, and then for each review we've got, just show each one by one in a loop in a italic text like that. Nothing terribly special. We'll add below that our own text editor to have our own review text in here. So text editor, text, $review text. Give it a fixed height, please, otherwise you'll have all sorts of problems. Frame height is 200. And because these things are basically invisible by default on iOS, I recommend adding a border, color.gray, width 1, just so it stands out nice and clear on the screen. And below that, button, submit review, action, submit review. So call that over the way. Or I don't know, what's the error, Tim? Is the error it's not optional? I made review URL optional because it uses string interpolation to create the whole URL. In theory, it could go wrong, and so I make it return optional. Like that. Optional URL. It shouldn't go wrong. Like, this is an integer, but you know. Anyway, so a whole review section plus a text editor plus a button to submit reviews. And now all we're going to do is actually call fetch movie details down here and add to our list of stuff being requested all the reviews as well. So these are all the ones we have for details and credits, all happening right now. We also want to do our review URL. So I'll do guard let review URL equals review URL else return. And now make another fetch, more or less like before. So we'll say let reviews request equal. Now this time we don't want to do get. Get is a TMDB API call with a particular path and API key, all that jazz. We don't want to do that. We want to use the underlying fetch call. So we'll use URL session .shared .fetch review URL, default value empty array, no reviews, completion. I'll do oops daisy will be downloaded in, and reviews equals downloaded. Stash it away. And again, make sure you insert that request into the any cancelable set. Otherwise, it will be destroyed. It won't complete and you'll be confused. Requests.insert reviews request. I want to warn you now. It's a public database. Anyone here in the workshop can see it. Please don't post mean things about Batman. You can, in theory, now post your own text reviews about Batman or The Martian or your favorite film into the database, and in theory it'll work. I see you've been busy already. This is impressive. You folks are fast. Let's find out. So let's have a look for when it finally loads. Let's search for, come on, search face. Could Eric see post? Of course you can, Eric, of course you can. There you go. So while that's thinking, I'll just park my simulators slightly off screen like that. There we go. And I'm going to search for Batman. Come on, Batman. Yeah, and hopefully, yay! Shot at the more mugger, 1 out of 10. Oh, we love you, Paul. I love you too. You're awesome. So you can see user reviews that someone else has posted. I honestly didn't write that myself, believe it or not. Someone else has written reviews now, and I can see their reviews and add my own reviews, hopefully to there. So I love you too. I wouldn't put too much stock in my API, so I wouldn't push it too hard with like emoji and stuff. I haven't tested it too well. There you go. Hopefully it'll come back with that being stored in here. So I suppose in the meantime, cool. Yeah. So we've now got review reading and review writing. Could I see the code review request? Review request. This thing down here. That is in fetch movie details. So, I'm wondering where else you're posting movie reviews on my server for me. Obviously, no one else sees it apart from folks in the workshop, and I'll probably clear it for the next workshop. Otherwise, I don't want to find things in there that ought not to be in there. It is, after all, completely anonymous. Martian, maybe I showed that one briefly, or maybe what else did I do? Nope, not the Martian. Austin Powers I did briefly. What would you sneaky people have used? Austin Powers, Goldmember. Not there either. Rats. Well, anyway, you can technically post reviews on any one of your movies. They all work, which is great. Jordan's not getting them. Well, honestly, there were a number of steps to get to this point. So it could have been a variety of things. It could be a problem with the call to fetch. Make sure you aren't doing get, you're doing fetch. Make sure you're storing that in your list of requests, any cancellables, otherwise it will be destroyed straight away. Submits down here, Drew. I like the way everyone's reviewing Batman. It's just, and not even any Batman, the Michael Keaton Batman. Edward wants movie detail view in fetch movie details. So that's this thing here. There you go. Boom. Everyone's reviewing Batman. Oh yeah, emoji works. It's like a bat emoji. Can I show submit review button again? I mean, the actual button code, it was, I can't show it just yet. Let me just let Eric see. Maybe screenshot this one, Eric, perhaps. Fetch movie details method there. Let's grab a screenshot, perhaps. And then I will scroll up to my submit review button code. 3, 2, 1. Get a screenshot, Eric, quick. And then the button code's just up here. It's not a lot, really. Just call submit review directly. Looking for where downloaded is defined. Downloaded. Oh, that comes into from the closure. Reviews request, that's passed in the result, whatever it had downloaded. So that is coming in here. You get a warning. Yes, make sure, James, you follow that up with insert it into the any cancelable set. Otherwise, it'll warn you it's not being used. If I have that line removed, for example, it should warn me that line 186 has a warning that it's not being there. Boom. Wow, it was there a second ago. Init of immutable value review request. What? A few bugs back to back here. Looks a bit, and that's okay. We can work through them. It's now 9 p.m. time here. I'd check that code. That's the exact correct line of code. You can see it working just fine here. It's possible there's a mistake in your code. Init immutable. What's the actual error message you're seeing? Can you paste the actual error message you're seeing in the chat? Or a screenshot in Slack, I don't really mind. Something that I can actually see. That's a very strange error message. Just like screenshot your screen with the warning visible, and I can have a look in Slack. Yeah, so it's never used. That means you've got to have the insert line afterwards, this thing here. So I'm saying, if you don't have this line here to insert it, it will not be happy. What? Underscore equals... No, don't do that, no. Just insert it into the set, otherwise it will complain. This thing here, this thing. You've got to have insert reviews request. No, don't discard the result. No, it doesn't discard, or don't discard the result. Please don't discard the result. Store it in review request here, and insert into requests any cancelable set. Otherwise, it will be destroyed straight away and may not ever complete. I was just trying to reproduce the warning. That's all, Eric. You want to make sure you insert into the requests any cancelable set. That keeps the request alive because it takes, I mean, obviously it's instant. I'm on an Ethernet here. It's fine. But, you're on a moving train or something like that. It's going to be slow. And so you want to keep it alive for 1 second, 2, 5, 10, whatever it is. So just keep it going. Keep the memory alive while the request completes. They are, Drew. I have just done exactly that. The request set is literally just it just stores it and keeps it alive while it's working, while it's still functioning. So the request won't just die by accident. As soon as the method ends, right? If you haven't stored it anywhere, it's destroyed. That's what if I comment the line out, you get the error that, well, not the error, the warning that James Eric was seeing, which is you haven't done anything with this. What are you sure it's what you mean? This seems really, really wrong. Okay, the warning isn't appearing now. Come on, there it is. Boom. Are you quite sure? Yeah, it's telling you it's going to be thrown away. It's a bad thing. It's not what you mean, probably. Please insert it into a set, otherwise it will not live long. So Juan asks, any recommendations for storing a file or an item in Core Data? Do not do that, is the recommendation. Not in Core Data, not in any database. They are not optimized for storing files. They're very, very bad at storing files. Keep in mind, Core Data particularly, you'll happily just talk to CloudKit behind the scenes. It's much better to exactly, thank you, a reference, generate a unique ID, UUID, whatever, .ping is your file name, whatever you're attaching, I don't know, JPEG, and then store that reference as a string inside Core Data. That's what you want to do. Don't try and store the actual blobs in Core Data. It's just really, really inefficient. It's not good at that at all. Where's the code for adding a review? So James, the code for adding a review is the submit review method here. This reads a review text, converts it into a review struct, and posts it off to our server. Here, this post call. When the result comes back, this thing here, it'll be a string. If it's equal to OK, it means it'll work successfully. We add it to our UI, then clear the review text so it goes away. Submit review is called inside the SwiftUI view further up here. We have our reviews text title. We print out all the reviews we have so far. Like a text editor for review text, and a button below saying submit review, action submit review. When I press submit review, it'll read the review text and send it off to the internet. That's what it's doing. Have I written about blobs? No. I don't think I have. No, I'm so hoping it goes away. Core Data this year. Go on. Alex, what kind of things would I use Core Data for? It's an uneasy position, Core Data, because it's like anything simple, absolutely codable all the way. Like, the overhead of Core Data is not worth it. It's just not worth it for simple applications. It's too frustrating. Even for sorting and filtering, I would still say, can I just do that in struct directly? There you go, Derek. Without involving Core Data. That's my preferred option, right? The time when I start to think, okay, fine, Core Data everywhere is fine, is when I have to have things like relationships. Because the problem with Codable is it'll want to decode everything up front. So either you start having multiple JSON files and each one stores a reference to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, so you can, stack it out like that. Or you decode everything. So, I want my data, give me all these things and all their things and all their things. It just goes, what's going on? You just get huge explosion of time and memory use. So that's where Codable really falls down. You'll either split up the little individual JSON files, reference files, your way up, or accept the mess. Core Data has a thing called faults, which is a terrible name. What it means is this property, this array of items, for example, okay, ordered set, whatever it's using behind the scenes, this thing is totally there, honest, and it isn't really there. Core Data lies to you. It claims to be there, but it only makes it there when you actually request it. It handles the fault. It looked it up as you need it, and that's significantly more efficient. That's, you can have any size database at that point, and it'll only do lookups when it's needed. So Core Data is very, very good for relationships. That's the main time I'd use it. Ideally. Okay, folks. It is 7 minutes past 9 or 4 o'clock in US time. So we're now done. I'm going to hang around. Once I end the stream, I'll hang around on Slack if you have any last minute coding problems or questions or whatever, I can hang out a few more minutes here if you want to. It's been obviously a very long day, a very intense day, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned at least one new thing, no matter what level you are along the way, because we've covered a huge amount of ground for Combine, getting and posting, debouncing, SwiftUI, core data, all sorts of things. And it was pretty intense too. I had to go at quite a pace to get through all this stuff. So hopefully you enjoyed it. You get a bunch of free stuff thanks to your wonderful donation to charity. It'll be handed out in the Accelerator channel on Slack. Make sure you get it through that channel. I'll give you further instructions as soon as it's ready. I know that Mark is doing his combined SwiftUI book. He's getting it ready for about a week from now. So it'll be soon, a week from now, we'll be able to hand out those books. In the meantime, I'd recommend you email me, like paul@hackingwithswift.com, free book request, title so I can find it easily, and just say which book you want from my store. There's a whole bunch of them. I don't really mind. Anyone's yours in return for your donation. So just email me, paul@hackingwithswift.com, and let me know what you want. Mark's book, I'll post to Accelerator when it's ready, which will be hopefully soon. And if you have any questions, I'll hang around a few more minutes here and on the Slack and let you know. Hopefully, had a good time. If you have, tweet about it. Let folks know. I mean, I really wish more folks took the time to do more charitable work. So thank you so much for donating. Alex, everyone gets Mark's SwiftUI Combined book, plus one free book from my store. Honestly, you get a huge amount of stuff for your money. It's great. So you're going to get that too. But it's not ready yet. It'll be ready next week, he said, to hand out the initial version of that. So it'll be a voucher due. I can give you the voucher now, but it's not going to work for another week. It's kind of pointless. So anyway, email me with your Hacking with Swift book request, and I'll let you know it'll be emailed back to you, okay? Thank you so much for coming along. Thank you so much for asking good questions, great questions, listening carefully, exploring tangents with me as we went, digging around in Swift code and more. We've done lots and lots of stuff, and it's been really great having you. And of course, thank you for helping charity too. We've raised a very large amount of money, and it's just fantastic. So thank you so much. Take care, folks, and hopefully we'll do this again sometime soon. Bye.